So here's what we should have learned in Chapter 1 of AP Microeconomics. So the first thing that you learn in an economics course is the idea that all of your resources are scarce. Whether it's your natural resources, whether it's your money, whatever it is, all physical objects on Earth are scarce, meaning that they're limited. At the same time, abstract things could be unlimited. So the ideas, numbers, the wants and needs of people, which I guess is just technically an idea, is all considered unlimited. So these two things conflict. We have scarce resources, unlimited wants and needs, and that forces people to make choices. That forces you and I to make choices as consumers, forces businesses to make decisions as to what they're going to do, and it forces governments to make decisions as to what they're going to do. Every choice involves an opportunity cost. And remember, opportunity cost is the next best alternative when you make a decision. So no matter what decision you make, there's always something else that you could have done, always something else you could have spent your time on, whatever you could have spent your money on. So if you're deciding to buy something with $100 and you're choosing between product A and B, you spend your $100 on product A, you gave up the opportunity to buy product B. That's your opportunity cost, the next best alternative, the one single next best alternative. Now, governments have to make choices also as to what they're going to do. So every country in the world has to decide with their scarce resources, how are we going to decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce it for. And those are called your fundamental economic questions. So to answer those fundamental questions, countries are set up by having a market, command, or maybe traditional economic system. This is their response to these three fundamental questions. So some countries have a market economy where you have economic freedom. Some places have a command economy where the government is controlling the resources and controlling the economy. And there are some communities of people that have more of a traditional system where they do things by custom. Jobs are passed down generation after generation, probably reliant on something like farming. The Amish are a good example of traditional. And the United States, we're a good example of a market economy. Cuba or North Korea or Venezuela might be a good example of a command economy where the government is controlling the resources. Next, production possibilities curves is another big concept of Chapter 1 in AP Microeconomics. So a production possibility curve is sort of the graph that exists that explains opportunity costs really well. If you end up with a straight production possibility curve, they'll call that constant opportunity costs. If it's bowed out like that, they'll call it increasing opportunity costs. So remember, opportunity cost is the one single next best alternative or what you give up when you make a decision. This one is increasing opportunity costs because as you go down the line from point A to F, you're giving up something greater. From A to B, 20 to 18, that is an 8, 20 to 18, you give up 2. From here to here, 18 became a 15, you gave up 3. From 15 to 11, you gave up 4. From 11 to 6, you gave up 5. And from 6 to 0, you gave up 6. So this shows the opportunity cost as you go from point to point. Now, what this model is for is looking at the maximum of what a business can produce if they're being as efficient as possible, or what a country can produce if they're being as efficient as possible. All the points on the line are the points of all the different possibilities of what they can produce if they're being as efficient as they can. If every machine is working perfectly, if every employee is working really hard, all the points on the line are the different possibilities of what they can produce. But when you go from point to point, there's always going to be an opportunity cost. So let's take a look at questions as it relates to this graph here. So if we go from point A to B, what's the opportunity cost? 0.20 became 1 in 18. So we lost 2 of the second one, so 2 Y products is what they gave up. I know they gained 1X, but the question is opportunity cost, what do you give up? What if we go the opposite direction from B back to A? 118 became 0.20, we lost 1X. What if we go from A to C? What do we lose? 0.20 became 2 and 15, so we lost 5 of the Y products. Other concepts on this that a teacher might point out is about specialization. Specialization is where you're just focused on making one product only. So like at A and F, you're focused on making one product only. 20 of product Y and nothing else, 5 of product X and nothing else. So our two specialization points, A and F. Next, another big concept is about comparative advantage, and this all is related stuff. Comparative advantage, opportunity cost, and production possibilities curves all kind of go together. Comparative advantage comes from an economist in around 1800 named David Ricardo, who said that countries can benefit from trade as long as they do it based on whoever has the comparative advantage. So comparative advantage, who can produce at a lower opportunity cost? So let's say that the United States and Japan are making product X and Y. The United States can produce 100 of product X, 50 of product Y. Japan 75 and 25. Then the question says, who has the comparative advantage in making product X? Whatever you're asked about, put that to the bottom of a fraction. They asked us about product X. I'm going to set up two fractions, one for the US. Product X, they can make 100. It goes to the bottom of the fraction as your denominator. The other product that the US gives up the opportunity to produce, product Y, 50, goes as your numerator. So 50 over 100, of course, is 1/2. What does 1/2 mean? It means for every product X that they produce, they give up the opportunity to produce 1/2 of product Y. What about for Japan? Again, product X, they can make 75. It goes to the bottom. Product Y becomes your numerator. It goes to the top. 25 over 75, 1/3. The lower number has the advantage. So, whoops, my mistake there. The lower number has the advantage. Since 1/3 is less than 1/2, Japan has the comparative advantage in making product X. Okay, now if the question then became who has a comparative advantage in making product Y, it would naturally be the United States because you would just flip those fractions. Okay, and then you'd have 2 over 1, which of course is 2, and 3 over 1, which of course is 3, and then it would be the United States that would have the advantage in the other product. So the country should trade based on whoever has the comparative advantage. That was the theory of David Ricardo. The other one is absolute advantage. It just means who can produce something more efficiently, who can produce something at a lower financial cost, perhaps. In this case here, let's say that this is what they make in a day. The United States would have the advantage in making product X. They can make 100 versus Japan's 75. And they would also have the absolute advantage in making product Y. They make 50 to Japan's 25. So absolute advantage, who can just produce more of something in the same time period or something that they can produce cheaper. That's another concept, absolute advantage. My example here was just for comparative advantage. One last thing that we might have learned, or we hopefully learned in chapter 1 of AP Microeconomics, was about utility and the utility maximizing rule. Utility just means satisfaction or happiness. And usually we're looking at a consumer buying a product. Marginal is a key concept, key idea or term in economics. It just means each additional. Here's your utility maximizing rule that you'll need to know. This is marginal utility of product X over the price. Marginal utility of product Y over the price. So here we have the quantity that this consumer is buying of product X, and this product is $1. The quantity that they're buying of product Y, and this product is $2. And you have the total happiness or the total utility. Now we just want to calculate if we were to calculate the marginal utility, just look at the difference. I guess here it would just be NA when we start at 0. Then from here to here, marginal utility would be 50, then it would be 25, then it would be 10. Over here, marginal utility here again is just going to be NA. Then it's going to be 70. It's going to be 30, it's going to be 20. The question is the consumer maximizing their utility with the purchase of the last one? Let's say they bought 3 of this and they bought 3 of this. So the marginal utility that we get, 10 over the price of this one is $1. Over here, the marginal utility from the purchase of the last one, that's going to be 20 over the price of that one, which is $2. So this is going to equal 10 equals 10. Therefore, they're maximizing their utility. If we were at some other point where it was, let's say, 25 over 1 and equals 20 over 2, and then we'd say that they're not maximizing their utility. So you're looking for where this ends up being equal. Here, if they buy 3 of this and 3 of this, then they are maximizing their utility based on this formula right here.